Hello, everybody, again. And here is another interaction I had on my most recent trip abroad, exactly where this picture was taken. So it's early in the morning, must have been about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun is just rising and it's gorgeous outside. Nice temperature. You can hear the birds chirping, peaceful and quiet. And there was this other guy, this Israeli, just sitting, chilling with a coffee and a book. And I said to him, "Isn't this a beautiful world that God created?" And he says to me, "It's a beautiful world, but not necessarily God created." I said, "What do you mean?" He says to me, "Science can explain everything these days. Everything can be explained through science, and we don't need God to explain how and why the world is so beautiful." I said to him, "What are you talking about? Science can only explain the way things work, but science can't explain how and why it works this way." And I gave him an example, and I said to him, let's say, for example, and he told me what his profession was, and I said, let's say I go into your place where you work, your laboratory, and everything is precisely in its proper place. And somebody comes in and says, this is here and this is there, and this is related to this thing and to the other thing. And the reason why the bathroom is there and the sink is here and the other equipment is there. And they give you an explanation for why everything is placed exactly where it is and how they relate to each other. That doesn't tell you who put it there and what the grand scheme and what the grand goal is for everything to be exactly where it is. So I said to him, that's exactly what you're telling me. When you say science can explain everything, science is only explaining after the fact. Once you come to the house and you see all the furniture and you see all the pictures and you see all the doors and you see everything in its place. So they're telling you and bringing to your attention where everything is, what the size and the measurement of everything is, and how they all relate to each other. But that doesn't explain to you how the house or how the factory or the laboratory came to be where it is and how it is and by whom. Now, it would be foolish to think for a moment that when you're looking at just merely a house, for example, and I gave him that example, you're looking at a house. It would be foolish for anybody to think that this house grew out of the ground mindlessly, that the wind went and blew all the components of the house, the foundation, the walls, the roof, the plumbing, the electricity, the switches, the faucets, the bathroom, the bedrooms, everything in its place, all happened randomly. It would be foolish to think that way. There had to have been an intelligent designer and an intelligent creator and somebody who put everything in its precise place for a precise reason. See, he came back at me and he says, well, science says that there's a multiverse, that there are millions and trillions of universes, and this one happened to turn out right. I said to him, let me ask you something. Number one, there's absolutely no foundation, there's absolutely no proof to this idea. It's a theory. And it's an idea in order to escape the responsibility of having a God in this world. He says, well, why is it a responsibility to have a God in this world? It's actually easier to have a God than not to have a God. Because if you have a God, you have a way, you have a journey. But if you don't have a God, then you don't have a sort of say a guaranteed journey through the Torah and a map to follow. You got to just do it on your own. I said to him, and we're going back and forth, and it's early in the morning, and he's enjoying the conversation, and I'm enjoying having it with him. So I said to him, this idea that there's a multiverse is such a wild and far-fetched idea. I said to him, you know how many little details there are in just one body? There's over 1 trillion cells. Every single cell is like a factory on its own. For the entire body to come together and to be a healthy body, the mathematical probability of it happening by itself is so extraordinarily large. It's literally impossible that it happened by itself. There are so many different components that have to fall in its place and support each other for in the end to have eyes that see and ears that hear and whatever else it is. It's impossible that such a thing should happen by itself. So what are you telling me about a multiverse? I said to him that, there's this theory that there's trillions of other different possible, and we just happen to turn out to be the right one. Number one, that idea in itself has no basis to it whatsoever in actual proof. Number two, our world that ends up to be exactly the way it is, with its precision that is beyond understanding, beyond belief, for it to be the way it is, it's just not possible that it happened the way it is by itself. And I said, besides that, I said, we believe in the Torah. We have a document that very clearly documents an entire people that stood around Mount Sinai and that experienced and witnessed this creator of the world giving us the Torah. We have it documented in a historical manuscript that we all attest to it, the Jewish people. God took us out of Egypt, took us through the Red Sea, gave us manna from heaven, and protected us with the clouds. It's there in a document. Doesn't matter where you find that historical document, it'll always be the exact same story, and we don't find anybody ever disputing that document. There's nothing more powerful to make something valid and authentic than the Torah that we have. Your great-grandmother and my great-grandfather both carried over this same story because all of them, hundreds and thousands and millions of them, witnessed this experience. What more proof would you want that there is a God who expressed and revealed himself to the Jewish people? He says to me, oh, that's not true. He says, there are all these other religions in the world, and all these other religions in the world, they also have some kind of document and some kind of manuscript that talk about a God, this, that, or the other. I said to him, that's a very good point. Yes, there are a lot of religions that claim certain claims, and you can find all kinds of archaeological manuscripts and whatever else it is that claim belief in the sun and in the moon and in the idol and whatever else it is. But I said there's a huge big difference between what they have and what their claim to fame is and our claim to fame. Their claim to fame is one individual who claims to have had a vision. Now, this guy could have had a vision, could not have had a vision. In all likelihood, maybe the guy was smoking pot, or who knows, what kind of mental situation the person was in. And he was imagining, he was dreaming, he was hallucinating, who knows? Or maybe even if it is accurate what the guy says he experienced, but he's one individual. And his experience is not necessarily related to mine or to millions of other different people. And so there is no proof, there is no support to what they said they believed in the sun and they believed in the moon. These were individuals that created that faith and belief, which has no grounds and has no support to it, as compared to what the Jewish people have, and that is our Torah, which was experienced and witnessed by millions of people when God gave the Torah and the Jewish people were standing around Mount Sinai. And it's not only that we saw God, we actually experienced this God. We experienced this God who gave us the Ten Commandments and who took us out of Egypt. And we saw, as our sages tell us, and that as it is written in that same manuscript, in the books of the prophets, that little children were able to see what only later on the greatest of prophets were only able to see through their own personal individual vision. And so this is the discussion I had with this fellow. They all started out on this very serene and quiet morning where it was so peaceful and quiet and it was so tranquil. And we got into this discussion. And in the end of this whole discussion, He says to me, you give me some food to thought. You give me something to think about. So I ended up this whole conversation with this fellow, and I said to him, listen, it doesn't take much time. It takes no more than a few seconds every day. Every morning when you wake up, say Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Contemplate, meditate on the idea that makes logical sense, on the idea that is historically supported, on the idea that your great-grandparents and my great-grandparents were persecuted and died so that we can still know that we're Jewish and still identify ourselves with this faith and with this special relationship with the Master of the universe. Meditate on that idea. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. That our God is one. He is the only source of energy everywhere. It's all just Him. And everything in this world is just an expression and a manifestation of this energy, the one God. And he said, I think I'm going to consider that. And that was one experience out of so many others on this incredible, wonderful trip to the Holy Land. I hope you enjoyed it and get some strength and inspiration from it.